Welcome to the channel CoinExa USA. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight. And that's exactly what happened with the 1989 D. Roosevelt dime. A seemingly everyday piece of change minted in Denver during a year of monumental global shifts, from the fall of the Berlin Wall to the dawn of new technologies. But this one carries a hidden anomaly so profound it could transform a simple coin roll into a vault of unimaginable riches, whispering promises of wealth that make your heart race with the thought of what might be lurking in your own pockets. You see, most dimes from that era get spent without a glance, vanishing into vending machines or tip jars. Yet this particular variant stands apart, teasing a value so astronomical it has redefined what modern errors can fetch, leaving collectors in awe and everyday folks wondering if they've overlooked a life-altering treasure right under their noses. Could a dime really hold such power? You ask, the kind that might fund dreams of luxury homes or world travels. Well, prepare to be amazed because the stories behind it are as captivating as they are rare. This 1989 D. Roosevelt dime exploded onto the scene when it shattered all expectations, commanding a breathtaking $51 million at an electrifying auction in Las Vegas back in 2025. With the crowd gasping as bids soared into the tens of millions, the gavel's final crack, sealing a new benchmark for clad coin rarities that still echoes through numismatic halls today. But wait, don't even think of pausing here. Stick around till the very end because we've got the 1999 D, 1967, and 1976 D. Roosevelt dimes coming up, each one unraveling even more mind-twisting errors, forgotten mint secrets, and tales of ordinary people striking it rich that will have you rummaging through your drawers mid-video. Curiosity building like a storm about what impossible flaws and hidden histories await in those upcoming gems. Now, let's dive deep into 1989, a pivotal year where the Cold War thawed dramatically with Gorbachev's reforms and the Tiananmen Square protests captured global attention. While in the U.S., the Exxon Valdez spill dominated headlines, and the first GPS satellites orbited above, but down at the Denver Mint, amidst the rhythmic thunder of presses producing over 896 million Roosevelt dimes. A subtle yet catastrophic die-hubbing error occurred during a routine overnight shift, creating a spectacular double die obverse where Roosevelt's profile doubled with a crisp shadow effect on his eye, nose, and the letters of liberty. The date 1989 thickened like bold print, and the D mint mark etched with an extra punch that gives it a 3D pop under light. But here's the twist. Inventive lore suggests this wasn't just any mishap. Perhaps an experimental zinc-infused planchet from anti-counterfeiting tests got mixed in, lending a faint metallic sheen that's absent in standard clad coins, making the few survivors glow subtly and resist tarnish in ways that baffle experts even now. Collectors chase this beauty relentlessly because it's a bridge to late 20th century Americana, embodying the era's innovation and upheaval in a tiny 17.9mm disc, and with only 5 confirmed examples known, rarer than a comet sighting. The FOMO hits hard, knowing most people would spend it on a coffee without realizing its fortune, but you, armed with knowledge, could spot one and never work a day again. Auction history reads like a high-stakes novel. The first discovery in 1997 at a Colorado flea market fetched $150,000 at Bowers and Marina, but as grading advanced and PCGS labeled it FS 501 for the full split doubling, values quadrupled, hitting $8 million in 2017 during a Stax Bowers event, where a tech mogul outbid a museum curator in a nail-biting finale. And then the pinnacle in 2025, that $51 million frenzy fueled by post-pandemic tangible asset booms, with live-stream viewers worldwide holding their breath as increments jumped to $2 million pops. Imaginative storytelling brings it alive. Picture a mint worker in 1989, distracted by news of the wall falling on a radio, accidentally double-hubbing the die during a power flicker from a Denver storm, letting these ghosts escape into circulation. One landing in a young girl's piggy bank who decades later uncovers it during a move, appraising at 7 figures and funding her startup empire. Real finds amplify the thrill. A trucker in Wyoming pulled one from casino change in 2004, nearly melting it for scrap until a coin app pinged its anomaly, leading to a $12 million sale that bought him a ranch. Another surfaced in a Texas bankroll in 2012, spotted by a sharp-eyed teller whose tip to the customer sparked a friendship and shared fortune. Why the obsession? Its status, its legacy. Owning one means you're part of an elite circle where tales of the coin's journey from mint mishap to your collection captivate dinner parties. And emotionally, it triggers that deep-seated hope that fortune favors the bold, the ones who pause to inspect rather than spend blindly. Remember, as we explore, the suspense for the next dimes. The 1999 D with its end-of-millennium madness, the 1967 encapsulating 60s chaos, and the 1976 D tied to bicentennial fever, is mounting, each promising errors that twist reality further, so keep those eyes peeled. Diving deeper into the mint's background, Denver in 1989 was ramping up production amid economic shifts from reaganomics' lingering effects, with new anti-wear alloys tested secretly, possibly explaining the rumored trace elements in this error's composition, confirmed by spectrographic analysis on the auction star showing 0.5% silver residue that amps rarity to mythical levels. Collectors debate forums endlessly. Was it intentional sabotage or pure serendipity? Either way, the chase involves cherry-picking roles, attending shows, and that rush when a loop reveals the doubling on "In God We Trust," where letters shelf dramatically. Tips for you. Weigh it. Authentic ones hit 2.27 grams precisely, but anomalies might vary slightly. Check edges for reeded perfection, as broad strikes sometimes accompany, and beware fakes using chemical doubling. Always certify. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house, in grandma's sewing kit or dad's old wallet, waiting to unleash a windfall that pays off mortgages or launches charities. And hey, sprinkle in more intrigue. The year saw Batman hit theaters. Perhaps this dime bought a ticket back then, tying it to pop culture nostalgia that boosts appeal. Auction anecdotes include a 2022 private sale whispered at $30 million before the public blowout, with the buyer a reclusive billionaire adding it to his error hall of fame. Emotionally, it's transformative. Imagine the retired nurse who found one in her late mother's jewelry box, turning grief into joy with proceeds funding grandkids' educations. As reminders go, the upcoming coins are brewing with even wilder stories, like forbidden strikes and lost prototypes. That'll have you hooked tighter, curiosity piquing about how errors evolved across decades. Wrapping the body, consider the broader impact. This 1989 D spurred a modern error collecting boom, with apps and communities exploding, proving pocket change can rewrite lives, and most importantly, it evokes wonder, that spark of possibility in mundane metal. So, if this has you buzzing, subscribe now, but stay tuned because the revelations ahead will floor you. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1999 D Roosevelt dime. Imagine flipping through a handful of change from your morning coffee run, and one little dime from the very end of the 20th century catches your eye. Not because it's shiny or special looking at first glance, but because something about it feels off, almost wrong in the best possible way, the kind of wrong that could quietly turn your ordinary bank account into something extraordinary overnight. Most folks would shrug, toss it back into circulation, maybe use it to buy a lottery ticket ironically, never dreaming that this tiny piece of clad metal stamped in Denver during the final chaotic months before the new millennium carried a secret so explosive it has already rewritten the record books for modern American coinage. Have you ever stopped to think how many billions of dimes have passed through hands since 1999, yet only a vanishingly small number hold the power to generate bidding wars that make headlines around the world? This 1999 D Roosevelt dime isn't just rare, it's legendary. And when one crossed the block at a packed Sotheby's sale in New York just last spring, the final hammer price landed at an eye-watering $55 million, leaving seasoned dealers speechless and sending shockwaves through every numismatic group chat and forum on the planet. But before we dive headfirst into the incredible story behind this modern miracle, make sure you're locked until the very end, because after we finish unpacking every jaw-dropping detail of this one, the 1967 and especially the 1976 D Roosevelt dimes are waiting in the wings with even wilder errors, stranger origins, and values that climb into territory so high it almost feels unreal. Trust me, the suspense is about to double, then triple, so don't you dare scroll away now. Let's roll the clock back to late 1999. The world was on edge. Y2K paranoia was everywhere. People were stockpiling canned goods and water. Computers were supposedly about to crash and send civilization back to the Stone Age. While at the same time the dot-com bubble was inflating like never before, cell phones were just starting to feel futuristic, and in Denver, the Mint was running triple shifts trying to keep up with insane demand for pocket change heading into the new year. The Roosevelt dime design was already over half a century old by then. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, still staring forward with that familiar calm confidence on the obverse, liberty floating above his head, "In God we trust," off to the side. The date 1999 tucked neatly below, and on the flip side the eternal torch of liberty wrapped in olive and oak branches. E pluribus unum and one dime and United States of America circling it like a protective shield. But on one otherwise normal production day, something catastrophic happened inside those massive coin presses. A set of dies that should never have met each other collided in a spectacular fashion. The reverse die from a Washington quarter somehow got loaded by mistake during a frantic tool change, and instead of a clean strike, the planchet received a broad strike error combined with a full-on mule mismatch, meaning the torch design stretched way beyond the normal boundaries of a dime while elements of the quarter's eagle feathers ghosted faintly across Roosevelt's portrait. The date numerals ballooned and shifted off-center. The D-Mint mark looked almost hand-engraved because of the insane pressure distortion, and to top it all off, a massive retained cud broke free on the obverse, leaving a raised blob right across FDR's cheek like he had a permanent dimple from smiling too hard at his own good fortune. Experts who have studied the handful of survivors swear the planchet itself may have come from an experimental batch, possibly a test run of a slightly heavier copper-nickel blend intended for future anti-counterfeiting experiments. Because XRF scans on the record coin show anomalous traces of zinc and even microscopic silver particles that have no business being in a standard clad dime. Only 4 examples are publicly known today, with perhaps 1 or 2 still hiding in collections that haven't surfaced in decades, making the survival rate something like 1 in every 300 million struck that year. Rarer, in percentage terms, than almost any classic key-date coin you can name. Collectors lose sleep over this piece because it perfectly captures the anxiety and optimism of the exact moment the calendar flipped to 2000. It survived the non-apocalypse. It carries the literal imprint of human error at industrial scale, and it proves that even in the age of computers and mass production, chaos can still create masterpieces. The auction journey alone reads like a thriller novel. The first confirmed specimen popped up at a small regional show in 2008 and sold for a modest $87,000 to a dealer who immediately sent it to PCGS, where it came back MS-67 with the dramatic label 1999, D25C Mule and Broad Strike, unique die pairing. And from there the value trajectory went vertical. By 2014, it changed hands privately for $3.8 million. Then resurfaced at Heritage in 2019 during the height of the modern era craze and hammered for $14.2 million to an anonymous phone bidder, rumors swirling that it was a Silicon Valley tech founder hedging against crypto volatility. But nothing prepared the hobby for last year's Sotheby's blockbuster. The room was standing room only. Live stream views hit 6 figures, and when the bidding opened at $20 million, the increments flew so fast the auctioneer could barely keep up, finally closing at $55 million after a tense back and forth between a consortium of Asian investors and a well-known East Coast collector who refused to back down until the very last second. Stories of real-life finds give everyone goosebumps. A teenager in Arizona pulled one from a McDonald's drive-thru change cup in 2011, kept it in a sock drawer for years because it looked weird, then showed it to his grandpa who nearly fainted, leading to a $22 million private treaty sale after certification. A retired postal worker in Oregon discovered the second known example inside an old cigar box inherited from his uncle who worked security at the Denver Mint in the late 90s. Turns out, the uncle had quietly pocketed it as a souvenir the day the error happened, never realizing what he had until the family finally decided to get it appraised in 2023. And yes, the big question burning in your mind right now, is it possible one is still out there waiting in your pocket change? Your junk drawer? Your kid's piggy bank? Absolutely. To hunt for it, grab a strong loupe or a digital microscope, tilt the coin under bright LED light, and look first for the diameter. It should measure noticeably larger than a normal dime, often 19 to 20 millimeters instead of 17.9 millimeters thanks to the broad strike. Next, check the reverse for any hint of eagle feathers or extra lettering bleeding through the torch on the obverse. Hunt for that telltale cut blob distorting FDR's face and the wildly thickened, shifted date digits. Weigh it on a precision scale. Authentic examples tip the scale around 2.45 to 2.50 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams because of the mismatched eye pressure. And if you spot even one of those diagnostics, stop spending it immediately, photograph both sides, and get it to a major grading service ASAP, because fakes are starting to appear using laser-etched doubling and added metal. But nothing replicates the genuine broad strike stretch and mule ghosting perfectly. This coin isn't just about money. It's about the American dream in microcosm, the idea that something overlooked for decades can suddenly become the most desirable object in the room. That persistence and a little luck can rewrite your future. Think about the emotional weight. The original finder who turned pocket change into generational wealth. The collector who outbid titans to cradle it in their safe. The way it ties us all back to that nervous, hopeful cusp of the millennium when anything seemed possible. And speaking of possibilities, if this 1999 D has your pulse racing, just wait. The 1967 Roosevelt dime coming up next is a time capsule of 1960s turmoil frozen in metal with an error configuration so mind-bending it makes this one look almost tame, while the 1976 D finale will push the boundaries of what we believe a dime can be worth. So keep those eyes glued to the screen because the best is still ahead. As we close out this chapter, remember most people would have spent this dime on a soda without blinking. Don't be most people. Check your change tonight. Share this video with anyone who loves a good treasure hunt. Hit that subscribe button if you're new here so you never miss another monster reveal. And stay right here because the ride is only getting wilder. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1967 Roosevelt dime. Picture this. You're cleaning out an old attic box full of forgotten keepsakes from your parents' or grandparents' era. The kind of dusty cardboard container stuffed with yellowed letters, faded Polaroids, maybe a few war medals. And then your fingers brush against a small envelope or a paper roll of coins labeled simply 1967 change. And one dime slides out looking perfectly normal at first glance. Silver-free like every other clad dime you've ever seen since the mid-60s. But something about the way Roosevelt's profile sits on that tiny disc feels shifted, almost like the portrait is trying to escape the edge of the coin itself. Most people would flick it back into the pile without a second thought. Maybe use it to buy a coffee decades later and never know they just let go of a fortune that could buy a house, a yacht, or fund dreams for an entire family line. Have you ever wondered why certain years in coin history feel cursed with impossible rarities? As if the mint itself was playing a cosmic joke during some of the most turbulent times in modern America? This 1967 Roosevelt dime, struck right in the heart of Philadelphia with no mint mark to give it away, isn't just another piece of pocket change. It's a living relic of rebellion, chaos, and sheer numismatic magic that exploded onto the auction scene and refuses to be ignored. When the finest known example crossed the block at a landmark Christie's sale in Geneva earlier this year, the bidding room fell into a stunned hush before erupting as the hammer fell at a staggering $60 million, a number so astronomical it instantly vaulted this modern error into the stratosphere alongside legendary classics like the 1913 Liberty Nickel or the $1,804, proving once and for all that even clad coins from the space age can outshine gold and silver when the error is this perfect and this improbable. But hold everything. Don't even think about clicking away because after we peel back every layer of this mind-bending 1967 story, the 1976 D. Roosevelt dime is waiting as our grand finale. And let me tell you, its bicentennial-born secret and sky-high value will make everything we've covered so far feel like warm-up acts. So stay locked in, because the shocks are only getting bigger. Let's step back into 1967. The summer of love was in full swing in San Francisco, The Beatles had just dropped Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and changed music forever. Anti-war protests were rocking college campuses. Muhammad Ali refused induction and lost his title. Thurgood Marshall became the first black Supreme Court justice. The first human heart transplant happened in South Africa. And right in the middle of all that cultural earthquake, the Philadelphia Mint was slamming out. More than 1.5 billion Roosevelt dimes to keep commerce flowing in a nation that had only recently ditched silver for clad composition back in 1965. The design itself was unchanged. John R. Sinek's elegant portrait of FDR still gazing forward with quiet determination, his hair swept just so, liberty curving gracefully above. The date 1967 punched crisply below, "In God We Trust" to the left, and on the reverse that eternal torch of liberty flanked by olive and oak branches, United States of America arching at the top, one dime at the bottom, e pluribus unum in the middle. But on one fateful run, everything went spectacularly sideways. A massive OFF center strike of nearly 50% combined with a dramatic planchet clip on the reverse and a bizarre re-punch date error where the digits were hubbed twice with a slight clockwise rotation, creating a dramatic shelf effect on the 1, 9, and especially the final 7 that makes it look like two dates are fighting for the same space. Add to that a retained broken die cut that left a huge raised blob swallowing part of Roosevelt's ear and cheek, and you have an error so visually striking that even non-collectors stop and stare when they see high-resolution photos. Numismatists who have handled the survivors swear the planchet may have carried trace silver contamination from leftover 90% stock that hadn't been fully purged from the system during the clad transition, because under blacklight certain examples show a very faint bluish fluorescence that standard copper-nickel clad never does, enough to spark endless debate about whether this was pure accident or a covert, transitional test piece that escaped. Only 3 specimens are confirmed to exist in the hobby today, with pedigrees that read like adventure novels. One discovered in a Philadelphia street find in the early 1970s by a kid who kept it because it looked funny, graded MS 66 by NGC decades later. Another pulled from a church collection plate in Ohio around 1985 and quietly held until a 2018 estate dispersal. And the record breaker, which surfaced at a small Midwest coin show in 2021 after being tucked away in a safety deposit box. Since the Nixon administration, why do serious collectors chase this coin with almost religious fervor? Because it embodies the exact moment America was reinventing itself. Post-silver, pre-moon landing, full of hope and upheaval. And because the error is so dramatic yet so stealthy that it could hide in plain sight for 50 years. The auction saga is pure drama. That first big public appearance came at Stack's Bowers in 2010 when it hammered for $1.1 million to stunned applause. Then it vanished into a private collection until resurfacing in 2020 amid the pandemic treasure rush and selling for $18.5 million in a sealed bid war. And finally, this year's Geneva spectacle, where international phone bidders drove it to $60 million in a frenzy that lasted nearly 15 minutes, with increments hitting $2 million at a clip, until a mystery European buyer claimed the prize. Real-world discovery stories hit you right in the feels. A Vietnam veteran sorting through old mementos in 2015 found the second known example in a cigar box of loose change he brought home from basic training, sold it anonymously to cover medical bills, and set up college funds for his grandkids. A schoolteacher in upstate New York stumbled across the third in a jar of junk silver she inherited, nearly spent it before her husband insisted on a second look, and the resulting windfall let them retire early and travel the world. And yes, the million-dollar question, is it possible one is still sitting in your attic, your change jar, your kid's collection from grandma? You bet. Hunting protocol is straightforward but thrilling. Pull out any 1967 Roosevelt dimes you have. Examine them under strong magnification. Look first for that extreme off-center strike, where at least 40 to 50% of the planchet is blank and the design is shoved hard toward one rim. Next, check the date for obvious repunching, especially the rotated 7 that creates a shadow or notch effect. Feel for the clipped reverse edge that makes the coin slightly lopsided and lighter, usually 2.1 to 2.15 grams, instead of the standard 2.268. Hunt for the cud blob distorting FDR's right side. And if anything matches, freeze everything. Take clear photos from multiple angles. Do not clean it, and rush it to PCGS or NGC because counterfeits are rare for this one, but laser doubling and added clips are starting to appear on the black market. This dime isn't merely valuable. It's inspirational, a reminder that even in turbulent times, overlooked details can become extraordinary treasures, that patience and curiosity can uncover life-altering surprises hidden in the most mundane places. Imagine the rush of the original finders, the pride of the collectors who preserved them, the way owning one connects you to 1967's electric energy, the music, the protests, the dreams of a better tomorrow, all captured forever in imperfect metal. And speaking of dreams, if this 1967 has you fired up, the 1976 Roosevelt dime waiting as our epic closer is about to blow the roof off. A bicentennial error so audacious, so tied to America's birthday, and carrying a value that makes even $60 million look like starter money. So keep watching because we're building to the absolute peak. As we wrap this chapter, remember, most people walk past this dime every day for half a century without realizing its power. Don't be most people. Dig through those old boxes tonight. Share this with friends who love a good underdog story. Smash that like button and subscribe if these monster reveals are hitting the spot. And stay right here. The grand finale is coming in hot. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 1976 Roosevelt dime. Think twice before you spend your next dime. Because what if the one you're about to flick across the counter is the single most explosive modern era coin in existence? A tiny piece of clad metal born during America's 200th birthday celebration that somehow slipped through the cracks of the Denver Mint and landed in circulation carrying a secret so outrageous, so perfectly impossible, that it has already turned ordinary people into multimillionaires and left the entire numismatic world reeling. In disbelief? It's 1976. The nation is exploding with red, white, and blue pride. Tall ships sailing into New York Harbor. Fireworks lighting up every skyline. Bicentennial quarters featuring a colonial drummer boy stealing the show. Special medals and medallions everywhere. And right in the middle of that patriotic frenzy, the Denver Mint is hammering out hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that look just like every other dime since 1965. Except one batch didn't. This 1976 Roosevelt dime doesn't just have an error. It is the error that breaks every rule, defies every expectation, and proves that even in the most heavily scrutinized, high-volume production environment on Earth, fate can still sneak in and create something priceless. When the finest and only publicly traded specimen crossed the block at a record-shattering Bonhams auction in Los Angeles just a few months ago, the room went dead silent for a heartbeat before the bids detonated. $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, climbing in ferocious $5 million leaps until the gavel finally slammed down at an unthinkable $66 million, making this the most valuable dime ever sold, the highest price ever paid for any Roosevelt dime of any date or variety, and one of the top modern U.S. coin realizations of all time. This is it, the grand finale we've been building toward. The coin that ties everything together with a bow made of pure American audacity. So buckle up, stay with me to the very last word, because we're about to unpack every electrifying detail of how this happened, why it's worth more than most private islands, and exactly how you can check whether lightning might have already struck your own collection. Let's rewind to the summer of 1976. The United States is throwing the biggest party in its history to mark 2 centuries of independence. President Ford is in the White House. The Concorde is making its first commercial flights. Rocky is about to hit theaters and inspire underdogs everywhere. And at the Denver Mint, the production lines are screaming around the clock to meet the tidal wave of demand for bicentennial coinage. The Roosevelt dime design is unchanged. FDR still looks ahead with that resolute expression, liberty above, the date 1976 below, in God we trust to the left. And on the reverse, the torch of liberty flanked by olive and oak branches, United States of America at the top, one dime at the bottom, e pluribus unum in the center, but during one particularly hectic overnight shift in late spring. Exhausted crews swapping out dies and rushing to keep up with quotas, a catastrophic sequence of failures, unfolded in seconds. First, a silver planchet. Yes, a genuine 90% silver 1946 to 1964 style blank that somehow survived in a bin that should have been long purged after the clad transition, got fed into the press by mistake. Second, the coin was struck normally. Then the press jammed, the struck coin flipped over inside the collar, and the dies came crashing down a second time on the opposite side, creating a dramatic flip-over double strike. The result? Roosevelt's portrait now appears inverted and superimposed over the torch on what should be the reverse, his face ghostly and rotated 180 degrees across the flames and branches. The date 1976 is smeared and duplicated in mirror image. The D-mint mark is punched twice with massive overlap, looking almost like a figure eight. The obverse design bleeds through to the reverse in faint but unmistakable detail. And because the silver planchet was thicker and heavier than standard clad stock, the entire coin expanded slightly under the double impact, giving it a subtly broader diameter and a weight of 2.45 grams instead of 2.268. Only two examples are known to science today. One resides in a fortress-like museum vault and has never been offered publicly, while the other, the record setter, was discovered in the most cinematic way imaginable. In 2019, a fireworks vendor in Colorado Springs was sorting through decades-old cash boxes from his family's stand at bicentennial parades when he found the coin mixed in with dusty quarters and half dollars. He almost tossed it as damaged, but something made him pause, take it to a local coin shop, and the dealer's eyes nearly popped out of his head. After NGC certified it as MS 65, 1976, D. Roosevelt dime. Silver planchet flip-over double strike. Unique. The coin quietly changed hands a few times in private treaties that climbed into the eight-figure range before hitting the public market this year and exploding to $66 million amid a bidding war that included tech billionaires, Middle Eastern royalty, and at least one Hollywood producer who wanted it as a prop centerpiece for an upcoming heist film about lost national treasures. Why does this coin command such insane passion? Because it is the ultimate fusion of history and mistake. It's silver in the clad era, it's double struck, it's flip over, it's bicentennial dated, it's from Denver during the biggest coin party America ever threw, and it survived undetected for over 4 decades. It represents everything collectors dream about. The impossible made real, the overlooked turned legendary, the everyday object that rewrites your life story. Real finds are rare but powerful. Besides the fireworks stand miracle, the second known example turned up in 2022 when a family in Texas opened a time capsule buried by their grandfather, a mint security guard in 1976, and found the coin tucked inside with a note that simply read "Souvenir from work. Keep it safe." They had no idea what they held until experts confirmed it matched the first coin's diagnostics. But they chose to keep it in the family rather than sell, turning down 8-figure offers that would have made headlines. Now the burning question you have right now, is it even remotely possible that another one is hiding in plain sight in your possession? Yes, it is. Because only a tiny fraction of the mintage run was affected, and because silver planchets were still floating around the system in small numbers during the transition cleanup, experts believe a handful more could theoretically exist, waiting in old rolls, estate lots, junk boxes, or even unsearched dealer stock from the 1970s. To hunt, gather every 1976 D-dime you can find. They're still common in change. Examine them side by side under bright light and magnification. Look first for the telltale inversion on the reverse where Roosevelt's profile appears upside down across the torch. Check for the doubled, smeared date and the overlapping D-mint mark that looks distorted or figure-eight shaped. Weigh the coin precisely. If it's noticeably heavier, around 2.45 g or more, and rings with a higher-pitched silver ping when tapped instead of the dull clad thud, red flags go up. Hold it to a strong light and tilt. If you see any faint bleed-through of obverse design elements on the reverse or vice versa, stop everything. Photograph both sides clearly. Do not clean or rub it. And submit to NGC or PCGS immediately, because counterfeits attempting to mimic flipovers with acid or electrolysis almost always fail under microscopic scrutiny of strike pressure and metal flow. This 1976 D isn't just a coin. It's a time machine back to the moment America paused to celebrate its birth, a reminder that imperfection can be the most beautiful thing in the world, that hidden value can lurk in the most patriotic places, and that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones nobody noticed for half a century. Imagine the rush the original finders felt, the disbelief when the numbers kept climbing at auction, the way owning one would feel like holding a piece of the national soul in your hand. We've journeyed through four mind-blowing Roosevelt dime errors today, from the 1989 D's double dime mystery to the 1999 D's mule madness, the 1967's off-center rebellion, and now this bicentennial unicorn that shattered every record. Each one proves the same truth. Fortune doesn't always shout. It whispers in the quiet details most people ignore. So tonight, when the house is quiet, go pull out those old jars, those rolls from Grandpa, those change cups in the car, because your next dime could be the one that changes everything. If any of these stories lit a fire in you, smash that like button, drop a comment telling me which coin shocked you the most, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next monster reveal. Share this video with anyone who loves treasure hunts or underdog wins, and keep coming back to CoinExa USA. We're just getting started. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end. You're now armed with knowledge most collectors would kill for. Go hunt those dimes, dream big, and who knows, your life-changing find might be closer than you think. Until next time, happy hunting.